Alright, I'm back with another Destiny 2 video. Not exactly going to be bathing in the positivity pool for the foreseeable future. This one is kind of just a culmination of everything and what I view as the central problem with the current state of the game. And this is not exactly a new idea, but it is something that I worry could single-handedly sink the game. And yet I'm not really sure about what the alternative is, and I do understand why it was developed in the first place. It's the portal. Surprise. This is essentially the core of the game now. The way things are going to work from here are we're going to get a story-based expansion every 6 months. I think Edge of Fate, generally speaking, went better than I thought it would be. The change here, though, is that there's a really hard ending there where you finish it, next week you log in and there's nothing, and then you start doing the portal. You can regrind some Edge of Fate stuff, but did they never change mythic difficulty to be way less obnoxious because it's so bullet spongy? I've lost track. Maybe they did. But they did balance it for solo play, didn't they? I haven't tried it. You're herded into the portal. And the portal, as we know, is divided into solo ops, fireteam ops, pinnacle ops, and crucible ops. And the goal is to increase your power level, and then increasing your power level lets you do higher tiers of difficulty, and then that lets you grind higher tiers of loot, be it weapons or armor, under the new tier 1 to 5 system, where, I don't know, tier 1 to 2 might not even exist, whereas tier 5 is not necessary per se compared to tier 3 and tier 4, but it's the quote-unquote goal now. I feel like I've just come to a point where after 3 months of really trying to make the portal work and see if I can get into this new grind, the answer, like most people, is no. And I don't think there's really anything they can do to change it. A lot of the complaints with the portal early on were, this is taking the power climb is taking too long. It's annoying to try and do the light level difficulty balancing to get to the next tier. It's not rewarding enough, and we're only encouraged to run 2 things, and so everything else needs to be rewarding. I mean, they've changed almost all of that, and if they haven't yet, they're about to. They've made the power climb faster. They've made Primus drop more. They've made a lot of other things more rewarding. They've accelerated everything and addressed a lot of the issues that some people complain about with the portal. Most people. I still don't want to play it. You know what I mean? At this point, I was wondering okay, if they change all these things, maybe I'll get back on the grind. And I still have no desire to. It feels like they could give me almost anything at this point. Every drop is a +5, or everything is a tier 5, and I still just wouldn't want to engage with the system because at its core, I just don't find it engaging. I don't really like the idea of having to manually pick each modifier every single time. It's just kind of annoying, and now what they're doing is just your set deltas, which I guess is better than the old system, but I don't know, rearranging your exact modifiers every single time is you play your own way, and it's is that really what it's like? You have your choice of bad modifiers, and then you don't really use the good ones most of the time because they just drag your score down. So you're kind of just picking your own punishments. And then when you do this, unless you're doing solo ops, you have to go fire team find a team and then hope they are okay with your modifiers. And then obviously the system still just comes down to speed running whatever the most, valuable thing is. And this is always going to remain 95% old content. Maybe this would change with the next expansion, but Edge of Fate doesn't have things in the portal. It has its own missions that you grind under a separate system. And then the only new addition to the portal that we got that isn't a pass mission or a solo op patrol space thing they made up is the new reclaim stuff. And I've repeatedly said how awful Reclaim is, but like even if it was a good activity, it's still just one thing slotted into the entire portal system. So there's no real good option there, because it's either, if that's the most rewarding thing, you grind that for the new gear and nothing else, and so the rest of the portal is like completely pointless. Or if it's on par with everything else, it's just one more node out of 20 nodes in Fireteam Ops or whatever. And if it's not the most efficient, you're probably still going to grind something else. It's like, well, play this for fun because it's new, and that requires it being fun, which Reclaim is not. But it doesn't really change anything. And I think the core of what people want here and the appeal of Destiny is you get a new activity, it's fun, you grind it for the new loot. And then, maybe there's some, intermission or intermediate story missions, and then maybe another kind of side activity that is also something you can grind lightly for new loot. And if you're running old stuff, it's for things like a Grandmaster Nightfall, or if you really want to hop into the Fire Team, whatever it's called, playlist, the normal Vanguard one, or was it Vanguard Ops? And they've made the portal just the thing without that new system in place. And adding gear midway through, you kind of just dump that into the old pool, and it doesn't feel like you're motivated to grind that when it's just become a bigger pool, and you're not doing a new activity 90% of the time to get that stuff. You're just doing what you did before and kind of praying for different drops. Again, even if Reclaim was fun, that still presents its own problems. Additionally, all of this comes with relying on the portal for essentially the entire game. It is brutal what they did to the rest of the game. Like, they spent so long like coming up with systems that worked and that people liked, whether that was not token things, but like reward tracks for vendors, and then the new what is it called, it's not called the constellation, you know what I mean, the thing with the nodes that you go through. There's memes that like I never remember what anything's called, which is definitely true, but you know what I'm talking about. They came up with that system, and then they refined it, and that was actually pretty good, and it was a good way to earn prime drops or exotics and things like that. And now that's gone. Like, you go to the Drifter and look at his him as a vendor. He's got like an abandoned quest, and I think that's it. And you've deleted something like Grandmaster Nightfalls essentially entirely, which they've sort of been replaced by those like super missions, the challenge missions that are not the same thing, that people don't especially like, especially with a lot of the new negative modifiers. And they just want their GMs back, which, we spent years and years kind of making GMs better, and now they're just gone. And as I kind of mentioned yesterday, like the fact that most of the game is so disengaging now is preventing people from, wanting to do the stuff that is engaging. I repeatedly heard now that the boss of Desert Perpetual, the latest boss, is the best in history, and this might be the best raid, according to some people, which you can then go and see that only a couple thousand people have even cleared the epic raid, just because the interest is not there and the player drop-off has been so short. So we're in a situation now where, because the base game is so empty and unappealing, that the actual good content that is at some times made is being kind of overlooked entirely. And there's just a real disconnect between like the raid and dungeon team and then like the normal activity team, because one is good and the other isn't, but one is going to be played by 80% of the player base and one is going to be played by 20%, or these days, I don't know, 5%. The problem is like, what do you do here? Because what I'm talking about, of like the stuff I said before, like you have one activity, you grind it, maybe a sub activity, you do story week to week stuff, seasons. I'm talking about seasons, but they just don't have the resources now to do that, nor do they have the decision making to make what they currently have good. I think if they could continue on doing seasons like they were doing, they would do that. Episodes had their problems and people were like, but like episodes were really good compared to what we have now, which is nothing. Like episodes were almost on the level, or even more so than seasons. There was one less of them, but the activities they came with were really good. And it was the thing. You grind these new activities, you get the new loot. It worked out really well. And you can see how they could just continue that model under the new tier system. Different difficulties of those missions give you different tiers and stuff. And like, it doesn't seem that much of a stretch, but they're so resource thin at this point that they have to put the game in some kind of maintenance mode. And that's definitely what this feels like, because you're not adding new content truly. You're adding like one, very small activity, and you're just adding not even a bunch of, some amount of new weapons and armor. And of course, we've talked about how the armor designs, 5 of them are in Eververse season. So when we talk about earning appealing things, that is an issue too. What replaces this though? If you can't go back to seasons and this current thing is very bad and unappealing, I'm just not sure what you do, because there's clearly a void of content here, which is why they had to go back to the well of all the content they already made. And they're like, well, you can do different modifiers, you can earn different loot now, but it's not enough. And I think step one is getting rid of the just very stupid power climb. Different difficulties give different tiers, and reach a score and you get the highest tier, like something like that. But like, just a 100-hour grind to max level to start getting tier 5s everywhere is clearly not working. And everyone who has done that grind, whether it was to 450 or 550, are like, no one should ever do this for any reason. And even making it faster, as I said, is still not going to be motivation for people to do it. It feels to me like Destiny has just fundamentally become a game you play differently, where you just can't grind it week to week anymore. Not really. I mean, if you're really into Crucible or something, or somehow the Portal really clicks with you, maybe, but this feels like a game now where it's going to be, buy the expansion pack or whatever, do the short expansion, you're done, because it's essentially a one-off because there's no more story content to follow, and then don't do anything unless you maybe want to grind for a few of the new weapons briefly. Wait and see what the mid-season update is. I'm hoping that future mid-season updates will learn from this one and be less outrageously awful. Return for a dungeon, return for a raid, play it once, a couple times, as much as you want, and then kind of wait till the next expansion. This feels like a game now that is no longer like a weekly login, see what's different. Like, what's different is the damn Eververse store. Like, that's what's different. Or sometimes they'll do like an Arms Week, or Iron Banner's back and it's shitty. Like, this isn't really a game that is going to be a live service in the traditional way. The stuff like major updates are free, and you can just check those out at your will. But the actual expansions are just, they feel like single player game expansions, especially, I mean, they kind of are single player game expansions, because these new worlds they're introducing are, patrol zones are single player only. You can do the missions and stuff with the team, but it's really one off. You get a expansion and beat it over the course of a week or however long it takes you, and you're done. And then we're going to wait for Renegades in December, and we're going to play that and do the whole Star Wars thing. And then I imagine we'll be done, because there's not going to be a week-to-week story drop there outside of, I don't know, Grimoire cards or whatever the equivalent of that is now. And then it's going to be the Portal again. I don't know if the Portal is like the long-term future of Destiny. It feels like it almost can't be, and it feels like they have to replace it with something. I would be surprised if they did it within year 2. I would be very surprised if they had the time and runway to read the reaction to the Portal and scrap everything and be like starting, with the next expansion after Renegades. Like, we're doing something completely different. In a perfect world, that would be true. But again, with the resources they have now, that is likely not going to be the case. And we also have the launch of Marathon, which is supposed to be coming in the first quarter of 2026, or the first third Q4 fiscal year. You know what I mean? So that's going to be a focus, for better or worse, of Bungie. And, you know, if that requires even more people to maintain it, even more people to make content for it, then further resources sapped away. And Lord only knows how many people are going to just continue to leave through attrition or get fired, because that happens all the time. And I think that will continue to happen even if, you know, Pete Parsons is gone. It's not like Sony's going to be some benevolent, like, oh, we're going to hire 300 more staff in Bungie to make sure year 12 of Destiny 2 is perfect. You know, how many times do we have to go over the answer was Destiny 3 thing? Like, that's a dream world at this point. That decision would have had to have been made years ago. If it's ever going to happen, you know, what are we going to wait? Another 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, if the franchise, if Bungie's even around then? So that's kind of a hindsight is 2020 thing. And, you know, I've talked about that plenty of times, but that's all kind of people can come up with is this current content shouldn't exist. We shouldn't really be playing Destiny 2 now anyway. We should be at least taking time off until, you know, and we're going to wait for a Destiny 3 we know is coming. There's not a Destiny 3 coming. So this is what you get. It's not good, and I think the core problem here is just the portal as the day-to-day thing you're supposed to do, when I would argue it's not more than like 2 or 3 or 4 weeks a year that is going to actually deliver interesting content, whether that is an expansion drop or a raid drop or maybe an exotic mission drop or something like that, because the interim for now is just going to be the portal, just going to be the portal grind, power grind, and they can make it more and more rewarding, but that does not seem to be the answer in terms of making it appealing for me, for a lot of people. I'm guessing, judging by the comments on all these videos, I don't see many big portal supporters. So I think Bungie has a lot of work to do. I think that a good chunk of them are doing the best they can. As I said, some teams are really killing it, but there are clearly people internally that are not making good decisions about the game and the direction of the game. I don't know, like the whole do a whole thing on Tyson Green, but like I don't know where he is. I can, you know, understand why someone is not really a front-facing person. You know, you can't all be charismatic Joe Blackburn or whatever, but like seeing nothing from him, hearing nothing from him, having every single event or stream or whatever be people who are not the game director does not really instill confidence. And I don't know, like he hasn't been around long enough where like 100% the portal is for sure his idea. I mean, he's overseeing it, but that may have been something that was kind of being worked on behind the scenes as the future a while ago. But still, he's very MIA, and that's very noticeable. But I don't know if Bungie has any answers to share right now. Maybe they will later, but for now, this is where we are. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.